So let's have a look at what your options are regarding Pillar 2 Swiss pensions. Now remember, these are the pensions that we've left in Switzerland, our employer-based pension schemes, and then they've been converted to cash. So you do have the option of doing nothing, but this option just means that you are leaving your retirement funds in cash in a state where they're not growing and actually losing value by being eroded by inflation every single year. Now, I would never suggest to do that idea. Rather, we can look at other alternative options that you have, like you can fully encash your Pillar 2 entitlements in certain situations. So if you move to a country outside the European Union or the European Free Trade Agreement list of countries, you have the right to withdraw your entire Pillar 2 pension contributions. You can take this as cash. Now, if you move to a country within the EU or the list of European Free Trade Agreement countries, you have the right to withdraw in cash your extra mandatory benefits. Now remember, we talked about the difference between mandatory and extra mandatory. The extra mandatory benefits are the contributions you made in addition to the required minimums at the time of investing in your employer-based schemes. If you were to encash your Pillar 2 pensions, withdrawals are subject to capital withdrawal tax. Now, this capital withdrawal tax is dependent upon the canton in which your pension is based. Now, one of the key areas that Blacktower can really help with is we have the ability to advise on how to move your pensions to a more tax favourable canton within Switzerland in order to reduce that capital withdrawal tax. So in one simple step, with a tiny amount of paperwork, you're able to reduce your tax bill when withdrawing these assets. The other thing to note is that when you do encash Pillar 2 contributions, you will likely be taxed in your local country of residence. Now, of course, it really just depends on your local tax laws, but more often than not, this will be classed as income tax. Now, if you're one of the people like me who doesn't like the idea of withdrawing money from a retirement account before retirement, well, you have an additional option, which is you can transfer those Pillar 2 contributions, those ones held as cash, into a new vested benefit account. Or in other words, you can just move it back into a pension scheme, which allows you to invest in assets that are going to help grow towards your retirement. You'll get exposure to stocks, bonds, the real estate market, and it will continue to grow with the same tax benefits than it would if you had stayed working in Switzerland. So it's really just a transition from holding an asset which doesn't have any growth potential, which is cash, and moving it into assets which do have growth potential, which are going to work towards securing your retirement long term. And so the other benefit about this is that when we transfer this cash fund into an invested fund, we can also transfer the invested fund into a canton which has favourable tax rates for pension withdrawals. So in two steps, we have stopped your investment eroding from inflation and started growing towards your retirement. And in the second step, we've also reduced the amount of tax that you will pay when you take money out of the pension. Pillar 3, again, you do have the option of doing nothing. And although this option isn't nearly as disastrous as doing nothing with option 2, there are still better options. Doing nothing means that you will retain the same investments that you had prior to leaving Switzerland. Remember that Pillar 3 do not change in the same respect that Pillar 2 pensions do when you leave. But you may be paying more tax than is needed, because again, just like Pillar 2, you have the ability to move your Pillar 3 pension schemes into a new account located in a much more tax favourable canton. So again, we're just reducing the amount of tax that we take at withdrawal. And in addition to that, we have the additional benefit of increasing investment selection and allowing you to manage your retirement accounts far more effectively. So just a quick summary. So Pillar 1, if you leave your Pillar 1 pensions and do nothing with them, if you are a member of a country which has social security agreements in place with Switzerland, which allows for you to receive your pension benefits, then you will still be able to receive them at retirement. If you do not fall into that category, or you fall into a category of being a citizen of a country which has a social security agreement which will allow either the full encashment of social security payments or the payment of that, you also have the option to fully encash your contributions and have it paid out to you. Again, this is really dependent on a number of different eligibility criteria. Now, Pillar 2 pensions, you do have the option of doing nothing, but again, that's leaving your retirement accounts in cash, acting as the worst bank account possible. The two options which I'd really think most people should consider is whether you want to look at encashing your Pillar 2 pension funds or transferring them to a new pension account which will be able to be invested in assets that will start providing growth again, like before you left Switzerland. Now, in either one of these cases, we would recommend moving the scheme into a tax favourable pension scheme as part of that process. Even if you're fully encashing, this just means that when you encash, you pay less tax. And if you are transferring to a new pension scheme to have it invested again and start growing again, well, then you're reducing the amount of tax you'll pay at retirement. Both sound like good options. And Pillar 3 pensions, you can do nothing and it will still retain the same benefits as you left, or you can move it to a new pension scheme again, which will have a wider access to investments and will have more tax favourable rates at withdrawal. If anyone who's watching thinks this applies to them, I highly encourage you to click the link below and get in touch with a Blacktower advisor for a complimentary consultation regarding how we can help you manage your Swiss pensions.